is Solidarity Wednesdays. It's my favorite day of the week because I start off the day over at the Benjamin Dixon morning show. I have a really inspirational conversation, even during these incredibly stressful times. Existential threats all over the place. It's like a game of whack-a-mole. And that is why we decided to do Solidarity Wednesday, because we know that to get out of this, to get through this, it's going to take an extraordinary effort of solidarity. And so our dear friend Benjamin Dixon is here to join us today. What's up, Benjamin? You got a little costume change there?
Yeah, just a little bit. Let me lean my laptop back a little bit. Hey, Nomiki, it's always a pleasure. I love these Wednesdays.
Me too. I'm really also excited because we have a guest today for our Solidarity Wednesdays. He is the acting president of the AAPI fund, Victory Fund, excuse me, which mobilizes 23 million Asian American and Pacific Islander voters to participate in, that thing, voting, because we believe in democracy, or at least we try to protect our democracy. Thank you so much for joining us, Brad Jenkins.
Nomiki, thank you, Ben. Yo, that theme music, the whole music is so fire. I don't know.
I was thinking it's not mine though. Like that's Nomiki had that produced. Like you're talking about what we just heard. It was brilliant. I love it.
I feel like,
does every guest mention how dope your theme music is, Nomiki? Because it's so good.
Yeah. It's Napoleon the Legend. He is a panelist on our show. He's an amazing activist and hip hop artist, and he did it for us. And I was like, it was like the most moving thing.
I was thinking the same thing. I'm gonna be honest with you. I was thinking how dope the song was.
Well, I'll let him know. Maybe he can do some more projects. That's like a whole industry. So, Brad, okay, state of affairs right now, not looking great all around. We'll probably touch on foreign policy stuff in a second, but here back at home, I remember in December, I saw an article in the New York Times talking about how the Democratic Party's largest donors were like, hold up now, Biden administration, you're not focusing on protecting voting rights. We're not donating.
Yeah.
And that was the moment I was like, well, things are definitely going to change now if the biggest donors aren't donating because you're not prioritizing voting rights. But that didn't seem to do anything. What's the state of affairs when it comes to voting rights?
Oh, man, it's a tough beat, I will say. And there's been, probably not a surprise, there's been a fracture even among, I live in D.C. Where are you guys at? I don't know where in the country y'all are, if you're in New York or outside the Beltway, but You're in Atlanta. Okay, God bless you. I worked in the Obama administration, so I did wear the Obama hat. But I got this for you, Nomiki. I got my Bernie mug here.
Wow.
Obama
I was an Obama person too, so
yeah, one of the few Obama heads who was all in for Bernie. Look, I think that you're right. I think that there was, I'll put it mildly, I think that there were, as it should be, given what just took place, right? At the end of the day, what took place, and it's going to happen again. It's going to, we could just count on, and I wouldn't even call it a Republican Party anymore. I mean, they are a party of a wannabe a fascist leader. Yeah. This reality show host. They are 100% going to try to steal the election. Mm-hmm. And the fact that we have not prioritized doing everything that we can to ensure that not even that aside, right? The whole, the idea that secretaries of state, Republican secretaries of state, are going to do everything that they can to ensure that Donald Trump is reelected. That aside, but we already have in place so many barriers for people of color to vote.
That's right.
And we have a majority. We have a president. We have a White House. We have a Senate. We have a Congress. Sorry, I don't know why my phone is ringing. And we didn't do anything about it, I think, as Democrats. I think that there had been, y'all been sounding the alarm. I think a lot of progressives, obviously a lot of our champions in the Congress have been sounding the alarm. And I think that just knowing, and you guys probably know this, but just knowing the sort of the pace and the beat of the legislative push this past year, it was almost like Build Back Better or voting rights.
Right.
There was even a choice. The fact that we were even put in that position just shows how strategically we were not quite not quite aligned as a party. And this is the challenge. Look, this is the fundamental challenge of our party, of the Democratic Party. And I'm someone who, you know, again, I was a Bernie bro, but also I was an Obama bro. I don't know what the hell I am now.
I feel you on that. I'm like, what's going on?
Please tell me. But, you know, there's a real lack of leadership. There's a gap of leadership. And I think that, look, there's a lot of really inspiring young leadership, new folks, right? But when it comes to actually whipping votes, we're still relying on Nancy Pelosi. And so we're still relying on Chuck Schumer. So again, the party still has to, in many ways, defer to them. And so you're right, Nomiki, a lot of their donors, Schumer's donors, Pelosi's donors, were the ones saying we have to prioritize voting rights. Right. And we just didn't see it happen, which is
Ben, you're in Georgia. I mean, this is what I find so impressive, and I think so many other Americans saw this. You didn't wait for anybody to show up and save you. You guys started organizing years ago and did so very effectively and saved our Senate as a result. What's the vibe like there right now? I mean, that is the front lines for voting rights right now.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of work that was put into the ground here. A lot of organizations, Stacey Abrams headed up quite a few, the New Georgia Project, Black Male Voter Project, Mundell Robinson. There was a lot of organizations that were on the ground doing the work because they saw what the secretaries of state, particularly Brian Kemp, they saw what he did when he snatched the election away from Stacey Abrams. And so they had to, the gubernatorial election of 2018, they had to put boots on the ground to out-organize the voter suppression. And so where are we now? We're having to out-organize it again, you know, and this is really brings a lot of light to what you're saying, man, about like why people would take their donations away. Because if those donations are being used to out-organize voter suppression and you have the capacity to use legislation to help us out and you don't do it, then why are we using our money and or our manpower, human power to do anything for this party?
Yeah. Yeah, and Georgia's, I want to throw in, I mean, there's nothing more important than Georgia. I feel like it's ground zero right now if we're thinking about these midterms, right? Obviously we've got the Senate, we've got the gubernatorial. Just this past election, right? The runoff, the Senate runoff, just to show you, again, if we're talking about Solidarity Wednesday, which I also love, by the way. One of the first things I did when I came onto the Victory Fund was we have to, as communities of color, work together, right? We just have to do it because the resources that our democratic institutions actually spend on reaching and turning out our vote is pathetic.
It's insane.
Just it. And by the way, I think that the DNC would admit to it. I think that
they do. Jamie Harrison's having a fit over it right now.
100%. It's pathetic. And the reality is the only reason Biden is in office is because people of color, particularly in Georgia. The only reason we have a Senate is because of people of color in Georgia. And Asian Americans, you know, our community, I'm half Asian, half Black. So I also view this from a speaking of solidarity, I view this from a little bit of a different perspective. But, you know, Asian Americans are like scraping the bottom of the barrel, right? If you look at any super PAC, any IE, any campaign, it's like they're spending more on coffee and pizza than they're spending in actually reaching Asian American voters, even when our margins are big, even when we're like 11, 20, 25% of the vote. And in Georgia, we were such a huge, I mean, especially in Gwinnett County, right? Huge, you know, mostly Indian American, not East Asians, the South Asian Americans in Georgia. We did a thing, Victory Fund did a thing last cycle where we were able to get some money and invest in data because the data is a disaster, complete disaster in a state like Georgia. The Democratic Party refuses to invest in cleaning up the voter file with regards to communities of color because they say it's too hard. It's too challenging. And again, this is the only way we're going to win. So last cycle, Victory Fund spent a good amount of money just cleaning up the voter file. There were 300,000. You're going to love this, Ben. There were 300,000 voters in the voter file that were labeled as African American who were actually Asian American. And we clean that up. But think about that. Think about all the money being spent, like poured into Georgia in that final, 3 weeks. And they're trying to knock doors and they're trying to do lit. They're trying to do all this like sophisticated, targeting. Yeah. And they're sending the wrong community to actually turn it out. So, and we wonder why Asian Americans don't vote at higher rates. So we actually, this is a rare thing, but Victory Fund, we put together an MOU with Collective PAC, so Stephanie and Quentin, and then also Latina Victory Fund. So our 3 PACs are actually working together this cycle. So we're going to be raising money together. Great. We're going to be investing in data together in Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada.
Nice.
The only way we're going to win, because here's the thing, and I hate to say this because I have friends, a lot of friends that work at the DNC. They're not doing it.
They know
They're
it.
not doing it.
I mean, this is.
We have to do it. We have to do it for ourselves. You know
That's
what I mean?
right. That's right. That's right.
I'm so glad you mentioned the DNC, because that was where I wanted to pivot, because I mean, I can't even, it's like, you could literally, people can repeat my talking points now at this point. It's been going on for like 4 years. Friendly reminder, regular reminder that, the Democratic National Committee does not have budget transparency, and the voting members of the DNC wanted it. Jamie Harrison wanted it. They want to know where all that money that those donors are putting into the DNC is going, and why it's not being invested in state parties. State parties are flawed. They won't always operationalize the way that they should, but they're in the community, and they're there to build a pipeline. They know they know their communities. They know that I don't think there's any state party leader, I think that I can be firm to say this, that doesn't want to win, that does want to have 100%. Their candidates win. And if the DNC is just taking this money and putting it into some consultants, for presidential races, it's bad for democracy. And they know that now. I mean, this is what's really getting me. The word is out. Those donors would not have done this if they didn't know that their money was not going to the places that they keep asking for it to go. And it's, I mean, we're literally talking about preserving democracy worldwide, and yet we as the Democratic Party can't even put money into the Democratic Party for voting rights.
For data cleanup, no less.
Even just to win elections, right? I mean, that's the thing. Like, and the cool thing right now, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I'm trying to be, I always try to be positive, right? I always try to focus on like, what can we actually do? Because at this point, it's March, right? I mean, the midterm elections are right around the corner, right? Primaries are even, I mean, we just had a primary in Texas. So we're voting already. And at the end of the day, all I care about is winning, right? So you're right. Like, there are a lot of things that I think this administration, look, I mean, not to sound like a hack, but there are a lot of things this administration did do well, in defense of Biden, given what he inherited. And I mean, I've been living in DC, so we've been living in a state of fascism for the past 4 years. So like, anything better than Trump was great. But my thing is now is like, what are we seeing from the party to show me that they're focused on winning?
That's right.
When it comes to narrative, when it comes to actually saying what the Democratic Party has done for the American people for the past year, I'm not seeing it, right? And I'm not seeing, and we can't wait until a month before the election to start talking about this stuff.
That's right.
Right? Like, we got to do it. We got to do it now. And I think that's going to be the fundamental challenge. We can't just say we're not as bad as the other side. Now we're running on a record. We're running on what did we deliver for the American people in these past 2 years, or did we not? Right. And so to your point, Nomiki, on voting rights, that was the #1 agenda for the community that actually got us in there to begin with.
They didn't do anything.
So, and look, I mean, again, I still, call me like glass half full, but like, I still think things can be done, right? I think that gerrymandering, I do want to give a huge shout out to Eric Holder and what they're doing in like really fixing a lot of these gerrymandered districts. So give a huge shout out to those guys.
Fixing what they didn't do when they were in the administration.
But at least we're doing it now. I'm always glass half full. At least that shit's happening, right? Yeah. You got to be able to sort of put wins on the board. And, I don't know. I mean, look, we have to, I don't know. Like we gotta be able to show to particularly young people of color who don't vote in midterm elections, right? The base of the party, we don't vote. And so we have to be able to show something. And there's still time. You know, these elections are in November, so we'll see.
So Ben, I want to pivot just a little bit, but related to the election, the Ukraine war. I've been told not to say war by media experts, but I'm going to call it a war because he's committing war crimes. So this is my personal decision here. The war in Ukraine has created a sense, some sort of solidarity around the left that I haven't seen in the last couple of years. And I hate to already be here, but I feel like I'm CNN being like, what does this mean for the elections? But the truth is this going to be the out for the Biden administration, who can't get all this other work done, who can't get BBB passed, who, who's had cinema and Manchin holds up everything, who's not passing voting rights or protecting voting rights. And we're seeing all the attacks at the state level against, women's health, the Florida bill right now. I mean, everywhere you look, there's just bad news. But there's one piece of news that is always great for cable news and brings Americans together. It's war.
War.
Is that going to be enough, Ben?
No. Will it be useful? Yes. The reason I say no is because, let's be real, Putin has his hands in the Republican Party, right? And so while they are able to leverage this, the Democratic Party can leverage this war to win. I don't think that they're even going to do that successfully, because I believe, if you can allow me a little bit of my own conspiracy, I think they're dead set on losing, because they're literally doing everything necessary to lose. They're not even explaining that this is an inflation, this is price gouging effectively. They're not sending that messaging out in mailers. They're not running commercials on it. And you know why? It's because those silly consultants over there in the political realm are eating up all that cash, and I can't believe they can't get that African-American Asian distinction right, Brad. I mean, that's a pretty basic data thing. So with that type of behavior pattern from the top to the bottom, Nomiki, I think that they want to lose, because that's what they're doing. They're getting ready to lose.
And there's a lot of obviously contractors who are making a lot of money on both sides who are in appointed positions, without getting too wonky, in the DNC. They haven't been elected, but they're appointed, and they sit on important committees like the Rules Committee. And it's frustrating because, again, this is about democracy. Okay, last, just on Ukraine, I do want to touch on the refugee crisis, because I think we've all seen. We've seen the video footage of refugees, orphans, children. There was a report yesterday by Vlad Dutier on CBS of a child who went 500 miles with his phone number written on his hand and to get to the Polish border, and he's safe now. But it doesn't always end up that way. One of my best friends told me her colleagues had to evacuate Kiev, and the fathers stayed home, and it took them 48 hours just to get outside of Kiev because of the traffic. And then, of course, all the blocks along the way. Add to that, you're a person of color. So I asked my best friend, who has worked in Ukraine twice and is an expert in post-Soviet states, and she said, post-Soviet Union states have a real issue with race. It's not. It's a pretty much white. These are white countries. There's a lot of Eurasian tendencies there and flavors of Eurasian nationalism, and it can be economic progressivism or not, conservatism. But there is a lot of Eurasian nationalism, and that has been exhibited in how they've dealt with refugees that are not white. So it seems like it's shifting a little bit, but. Is this enough? I mean, is this conversation, obviously, the Eurasian politics is not something that we're all fluent in, but has it highlighted sort of the discrepancies between how we treat refugees here and abroad? I'll start with you, Brad.
I mean, 100%. I mean, I'm sure you guys have covered the coverage. Have you guys seen that viral clip of the way that they've been talking about the refugees, and even Fox News referring to them as refugees. It's like, oh, are you referring to other immigrants fleeing persecution, fleeing the border as refugees? I don't think you are. No, I mean, you're 100% right, Nomiki. This is complicated, right? And I think viewing it from afar, I think I'm reminded by two things that is helpful to level set. One, there's an Afghan refugee crisis right now, right? And Americans have, and there's been some really great work. Speaking of the Biden administration, they've done great work in resettling something like 75,000 Afghan refugees into the United States. But that number is going to increase. Mm-hmm. And we have a challenge right now. We're seeing all these beautiful images of, I'm not sure if you guys saw the Berlin train station, of all these Berliners literally going to the train station with signs welcoming refugees into their home, like literally saying, I will take you. In Poland, the same thing. Like, other countries are doing this. They're welcoming refugees. We have a crisis here in America because no one wants to do that here in America, right? For Afghan refugees. And so there's been a lot of investment from the administration into this organization called Welcome.us, which is working with all of these different civic organizations to actually place Afghan refugees in communities. So they're not in shelters, but they're actually in homes, right? A lot harder to do when they're Black and brown families than when they're, not white, white and blue eyes and blonde hair. With that said, though, Welcome US is actually going to start accepting Ukrainian refugees as well. Mm-hmm. It's just an interesting dynamic that's going to be at play here, because that's going to roll out. And I'm just curious. I think it's, their number one priority is because they know there's going to be another 50 to 70,000 Afghan refugees that they're going to have to accept and settle here in America. No one is bringing this up. That we need more Americans to step up and do this. So it's great. It's great to have a Ukrainian flag. Again, I don't want to cast any aspersions, but it's great to show solidarity in tweets and shares. But at the end of the day, we need, again, corporations, community centers, and actual families. The 1%, right? Again, Elon Musk trying to help people via tweets. It's like, look, there are very real children and very real families that need help. They need resources. They need a roof over their heads right now in America, not in Ukraine, here. And so folks want to help. I mean, like, literally, you could go to welcome.us. You can donate. You can offer to help. If there's a community where Afghan refugees are, they have like welcome committees where you can actually, as they get off the plane or as they get off, you can actually welcome them. This work is happening, and it doesn't have to be, again, I think that's the other big challenge. Refugees all over the world. And so if you've been inspired to act by seeing what's happening in Ukraine, please go to Welcome US and figure out ways that you can help right now. Because you can do it.
Ben, I mean, this is ultimately it. We have the capacity. I remember the beginning of when the Muslim ban took place, all the statistics about, how over the years, we've just been taking in fewer and fewer refugees, not to mention our own border crisis. Let's remind folks. Yes. But we have the capacity, Ben. Like, I think about on the left, communities against each other. So in solidarity, I mean, I'm glad that we're talking about these issues, but there has been a lot of conversation sort of pitting one community against another. When it's really, these are the effects of war and economic, I mean, in most cases, war, whether it's brutal situations in Central America or in Afghanistan or Syria or Yemen or Ukraine now, we know, or Somalia. We have the ability, right? I mean, what's it going to take, Ben? Do you have any?
Right? No. I want to just bring into the conversation, like you said, at our border, I'm reminded of how the Haitian migrants and asylum seekers were treated. I mean, America organized really quickly to clear them from the Texas border. One day there were thousands of Haitian asylum seekers there, and then the next morning they were all gone.
Right.
So the American government is extremely efficient at deporting people, but not at processing asylum seekers of a particular melanin count. We see that, and then we have to put that aside here because Ukrainian refugees still need help right now. Because we got to stop war. And I mean, you asked a big question, I have a big answer, because these are people who have been either the direct, they're running away from war directly in their nation, or they're running away from sanctions that have made their country unlivable. They can't find work, they can't feed their children, and so they migrate to find a better life. But it's two examples of what we in the United States contribute to the chaos that we create, at not only at our own border, but borders internationally.
That's right. Yeah. I just got back from Cuba, as you guys know, and I mean, the path from Cuba, 90 miles away from Miami, to go into to Brazil, found a way to Brazil because they could use their visa, because Cubans can only, their visas are only valid in certain countries. Flew to Brazil. Somehow, I can't remember, this one person told me the path into Central America, paid the coyotes, and these are not wealthy Cubans. These are poor Cubans who are affected by the sanctions. I was there for 2 weeks. I saw it personally, how difficult it was to get coffee, how difficult it was to get black beans. Like, these are things that I think are staples in the diet. And, thank God there was very, 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 very cheap for the citizens, but they run out because of sanctions, and you can only survive on the private market if they have it. So a lot of folks didn't want to leave Cuba, and one guy in particular, his daughter was a doctor. She sent her off. She was like, I think 29 years old or something, and she made it through. She went all over the border, coyote over the border into Texas, and made it. I didn't want to freak him out, but it was that was very dangerous. And I don't think she really told the full story to him about how dangerous that path was. So I'm glad you mentioned sanctions too, because that's a big part of this.
Yeah.
Guys, where can we check out your work? How can we support you?
AAPI Jenkins on all I don't really tweet. I feel like Twitter is just eats my soul away every time I go on there. So I retweet. So I'll retweet Ben and Nomiki. I'm on Instagram. I'm on I guess I'm still on Facebook because I'm an old person. But AAPI Jenkins. I'm again huge fan of Nomiki and Ben, what you guys have been doing for years.
You,
we need look, here's the way I'll put it, right? Is the stronger and better organized we are on the left, it actually helps our friends It actually helps our friends on the inside. It just makes their job so much easier when we can hold them accountable. So I want to thank you guys for doing that. And again, for all the work you guys have been doing for so many years. So,
and thank you for doing the hard work on the ground. Very, very
absolutely. It's good to see you guys.
Nice to see you too. Benjamin Dixon, thanks for joining us as usual. Go check out Ben's show. He has the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show and all the different places. And we will see you again next Wednesday. Thank you guys.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
We will be right back with our amazing panel. We have Rep Rab. You can become a member. If you join us at patreon.com/The Nomiki Show. It goes a long way. We are independent media, as you know, so we don't have all the big bucks coming in. We have to do this on our own time, our own way. We're a tight team. Try to get incredible guests, experts on, and have deeper conversations about complicated issues that you can't just hashtag. That's what you get with us.